All right, well, welcome to Presto. It sounds like you've just started using it here at Presto. We're motivating students to write across subjects, helping teachers to educate confident writers. We have a lot of tools to support students as they write, and today we're going to be discussing ways in which teachers can customize and scaffold their assignments using those tools in order to support their students. So one feature that we have that you can use to help support your students is our AI writing prompt generator. One way this can be used as a scaffold is to create a prompt based specifically on a concept your students need more practice with. So for example, if you're going through your students' writing and you notice they need some help with sensory details, you might create a specific prompt so that students are really practicing that writing skill. You can choose from our writing plans. I would probably have students practice this in description. Maybe you would also use personal narrative. We know students use a lot of sensory details there. And then you can see it will create some prompts for you, and you can use those to help kind of guide your students towards a specific skill that you want them practicing. I'll show you how to customize these in the next step. So here I have an assignment already started. I've started working on it. I've imported a prompt, and I have some important words created by the assignment assistant. You can adapt this prompt to support your students as well. So maybe you'll give your students more specific directions or add more questions to help guide their thinking. I might give them more specific directions to guide them towards their senses. So right now my prompt says, think about a place that is special to you. Describe your 5 senses when you are in that place. Maybe I'll give them a direction that says, write at least 1 sentence for each of the 5 senses. I might want them to use these important words as they're using as they're writing about their senses. So I might also guide them to use your important words to talk about each sense. And again, maybe my students don't know their 5 senses, so maybe I would put those in here as well. Sight, taste, touch, hearing, and what am I missing? Smell. There we go. Then once I've finished my prompt, I might want to adapt these important words. So right now I have see, taste, touch, smell here. Depending on your students' needs, you can adapt these in different ways and scaffold them for your students. Maybe you want your students working on specific vocabulary that are words that they would use to describe their senses. So maybe if you want your students talking about the taste of something, you might put in bitter or sweet. Maybe you want your students working on different tenses. So maybe instead of just smell, you would also put smell. Oops. Smelled or smelling. Maybe you want your students to use specific sentence starters. You can put those in here as well. You could say I saw or I smelled. And that way students will be guided to actually use those in their sentences rather than just the words. You can add phrases as well. So those are some ways to adapt your important words to help scaffold for students. You might also select a writing plan as a scaffold for students. So with writing plans, there are built-in scaffolds. For example, if you are going to use story or personal narrative for this writing prompt, it will come with specific signal words, which will help your students as they write to guide their reader through their writing. It will also come with writing blocks to help your students structure their writing. So in this case, the writing blocks and signal words are specific to story or personal narrative. If you want your students using description, those will change. So these are built-in scaffolds for your students. And so when you select a writing plan for your student, it's helping them with the structure of their writing and with building their writing out so that their readers are following their writing using signal words. All right, I'm going to add this in here. Another thing you can do to support your students with using these writing plans is to provide them with a graphic organizer. So here on our homepage, we have our graphic organizers. Let me just give this a second to load. And we have a graphic organizer for each of our writing plans. So these will support students not only in their planning of their ideas, you can print it out and hand it to them as they're thinking about the prompt, but also it will support them in that structure. So they'll see what blocks are needed in their writing. It'll help them visualize how the blocks are connected. So for example, all of the supporting details here are connected to the main idea, and each supporting detail might be a sense or senses that your students are working to describe. So printing out these graphic organizers and sending them to students will really support them in using their writing plan that you've assigned them, and also in structuring their writing. All right, so now we have this assignment all set up. We adapted our prompt to help our students with more directions for what we want them to do. We gave them a writing plan. We added those signal words or those important words, and we added those blocks and signal words. So now we're going to jump into the student preview. This is exactly what your students will see when you send this assignment out. So for example, the signal words and the important words and the word count will all be here on the right-hand side, along with a reminder of the writing plan. You'll see here this prompt will pop up right here for students. So it will all be there when they're ready to write. What I really like about this student preview is you have the opportunity to adapt and customize this writing document as much as you would like before you send it to students. So I'm going to show you a few different ways you can do that. One way you can get this ready for students is by adding blocks to outline the structure of their writing. So perhaps you'll add a main idea block to start, and then follow it up with however many supporting details you would like students to write. If you want one for each of the 5 senses, maybe you will add 5 blocks. This is really great for when students are learning that structure of writing an essay or a paragraph and how those ideas flow together. And it can also be built to match that graphic organizer if you're using the graphic organizer. So I have built out this assignment now with a main idea block with 5 supporting details, and I'll jump ahead to finishing it off with a conclusion. In addition to blocks, you can actually start writing for your students. So you can add a sentence starter if you'd like. So you might say, one place I love is, to give them a start to their writing so they're not just seeing a blank block. You can do it in those supporting details, such as maybe you want them to add the name of their place. I see. You can also see that as we're using these words, they get checked off over here. That'll be the same for students. They'll get checked off as students write them. Another way you can scaffold this document for students is to add images. So maybe you're doing this assignment a little bit different. Maybe you want to add an image that students are actually going to describe rather than answering that prompt about a place they choose. Maybe you'll give them some images. So I like mountain sunset. You can imagine that students would be able to take this image and describe it in a lot of different ways. How would it, what do they see? How would it feel to be there? What might they be hearing? So you can go ahead and add images for students to respond to if you'd like. You can also add block specific instructions. So perhaps you add a image caption here, and you can add an image of, let's do some pasta. This is straying a little bit from the prompt I started with as the example, but maybe students are writing about their favorite food. So you can add an image there as an example, but you can tell students, replace this image with a photo of your favorite food. I especially like this one. If students are drawing a picture, or if they're taking pictures on their Chromebook, you could say, replace this image with a picture of you, or replace this image with a drawing of your favorite place. So this is just giving students more specific directions as they work through their writing, once again, so they're not just getting a blank page. You might also add words, sentences, images, etc., to share reminders of previous learnings. So maybe in this main idea block, you would say, don't forget to add a hook here. Another way you could do that is by leaving students a comment or putting it in your instructions. But if you feel like students really need a reminder right there on the page, you can add it there for them and maybe just remind them, don't forget to delete that sentence before you start writing. So between adding blocks to structure their writing, adding sentence starters, adding images, adding block-specific instructions, and adding reminders of previous learning, there are a lot of ways to customize this document in order to scaffold it for students. When you're ready to send it to students, you can go ahead and assign it. You can send it out to classes you have already created, but it's also really easy to create a group of students. Here, by adding classes, you can add them through Google Classroom or create a join code. So if you'd like to send this to a specific group of students, you can just go ahead and create their own class for them and send them the join code in case you scaffold it specifically for maybe a small group that you're working with. All right. Once it's sent to students, you can send it to them with this link or it will appear directly in their Pressto. And lastly, I don't want to forget the importance of modeling. So as a teacher, you have your assignments tab here. You also have a gallery tab. The gallery tab can be really great for making example Prestos that you don't necessarily intend to send to students as assignments, but you would like to have so that students can look at them. So here I made a model of a place that I have visited, and I added, sentences. I added some sample sentences I would like to show students. Maybe I would show them the overall document to show them what a finished product looked like. Perhaps students and I would maybe work on a page of this together on the big screen. And you can share this with students with a publishing link, or you could print it out and share it amongst your students in your classroom. So this is something we've heard from teachers as being a really important step in their writing, is creating a model with the class. And it's really easy to do that in the gallery and to show students what it will look like as they work on their writing. So that is all I have today for scaffolding with Pressto. There are a lot of different ways to support your students, regardless of their age or writing experience. And I would love to answer any questions. So Stella, do you have any questions for me about Pressto in general or about scaffolding with Pressto? You can unmute or send them to the chat if you have any questions. But if not, we can wrap up there. Oh, there we go. Great. I'm glad this was a helpful demo. And if you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out to myself. My email is here, or anyone else on the team. And we would love to hear how you go about scaffolding your assignments using Pressto and how you are using Pressto with your students. But thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.